My girlfriend spent a lifetime inventing a time machine. She wanted to go back to win back her first love. I secretly followed her, and then I saw her. The woman I'd painstakingly taught how to love someone, holding her first love's hand saying softly, "I didn't know how to love before, and I hurt you, but now I've learned." The day after we traveled back, I saw Scarlett. It was at Alexander's birthday party. She appeared in the private room holding a cake she'd baked herself and a carefully chosen gift. Beneath the soft glow of the candles, her gaze was focused and full of affection. The romantic atmosphere instantly piqued everyone, gathered around waiting for Alexander to make a wish and blow out the candles, then started egging them on to kiss. I stood quietly at the very edge of the crowd and watched. Alexander, gift in hand, leaned down and kissed Scarlett lightly on the cheek. My roommate standing next to me introduced her. "That's Alexander's girlfriend. Isn't she stunning? She's not just gorgeous. She's incredibly thoughtful, considerate, attentive, and always keeps a respectful distance from other guys. Absolutely perfect." Silently, I watched Scarlett smile tenderly at Alexander. Then I lowered my gaze and quietly replied to my friend, "Indeed. Mature, reliable, very good at taking care of people." After all, I was the one who spent 5 years and countless hours teaching her, bit by bit. The original Scarlett wasn't like this at all. She was bad, tempered, impatient, impulsive, easily angered, irritable, and arrogant. Her relationship with Alexander, lasting less than 2 years, ended with him venting all his frustrations before falling for her friend. Scarlett couldn't accept it, so she spent years researching a time machine, learned everything I taught her about loving someone, and then without hesitation abandoned me to travel back to her sophomore year, right when she and Alexander had just gotten together. Even though our own 5-year anniversary was just a day away back then, but she couldn't wait. Now we were complete strangers. Alexander was the birthday boy, so naturally the conversation revolved around him and Scarlett. Someone asked him how to find such a perfect girlfriend. Someone else asked Scarlett if she had any friends as beautiful as her. Someone even joked half seriously, "You know the saying, one sows and another reaps." Scarlett's so attentive and considerate. Could it be her ex taught her all that? Scarlett didn't get annoyed. She just smiled faintly, then took Alexander's hand as if making a confession or perhaps a promise. "I don't have an ex. Alexander was my first love, and he's the only one I've ever loved." Of course, she didn't have an ex before him because I only got together with Scarlett the year after they broke up. I wasn't the one who sowed. I was the one who came after. But that didn't stop her from using all the ways I taught her to love me on Alexander. The lights flickered and dimmed in the room. The crowd shifted, so she never saw me standing in the corner. Not until after the cake was cut when Alexander was handing out slices and introducing her to his friends. Scarlett stood before me, our eyes met. I can't describe the look on her face the moment she saw me. Her smile froze. A flicker of inexplicable panic crossed her eyes, but she quickly composed herself. Then, as Alexander introduced me, saying, "This is Noah, my classmate," she stared blankly at me, lost in thought. I maintained a perfectly polite faint smile, watching Alexander turn his head towards her, frowning slightly as he asked, "What's wrong? Do you two know each other?" Scarlett finally snapped back, handed me the small slice of cake she was holding, and said coolly, distantly, "No, we don't." Clutching the cake, I sat down on a single armchair and looked towards Scarlett, who had returned to the center of the crowd. Under the flashing, shifting lights, she looked enchanting and lovely, her features delicate, truly breathtakingly beautiful, especially her eyes, deep as ink. When she looked at someone intently with focus, she always appeared both innocent and deeply affectionate. That's why during our 5 years together, no matter how angry or upset I was, the moment I saw her face, the moment she just looked at me quietly and softly called my name Noah, I'd immediately surrender, forgiving her effortlessly. The small cake in my hand gave off a faint scent of orange blossom. My roommate, chewing on his spoon, mumbled, "Noah, you gotta try this. It's unbelievably good. She put so much effort into it." Great. Now my standards for a girlfriend just went up another notch. I curved my lips slightly and took a small bite. A very familiar taste. I had taught Scarlett how to make it. I'd spent half a month patiently guiding her step by step as she tried again and again until she mastered it. Back then, She had looked at me earnestly and said, "Noah, once I learn, I'll bake you a cake myself for every single one of your birthdays." She learned, but she never once made one for me. Actually, in the original timeline, my first encounter with Scarlett wasn't at this birthday party. I didn't really know Alexander well. He'd invited the whole class, and I hadn't planned on going, but my roommate dragged me along for the fun. So in the original timeline, I left early after dropping off the gift and giving my birthday wishes. Consequently, I missed Scarlett, who arrived late. It was only later that night back in the dorm that my roommates mentioned her. "Noah, you left early. You missed Alexander's girlfriend. Total knockout." Too bad. She seemed kind of cold and distant, looked annoyed the whole party. Personality aside, they looked good together. I wasn't particularly curious and generally uninterested in other people's affairs, let alone some other guy's girlfriend. So after hearing this, I just smiled dismissively and didn't pay it any more mind, nor did I ask for her name. It wasn't until much later, shortly after Scarlett and I got together, that I happened to see a photo in her study and realized she was that beautiful girl. I hadn't seen Alexander's girlfriend, but I didn't care. After all, who doesn't have a past? Yet now we were back in the past, and unlike the original timeline, this time almost everyone was praising Scarlett. Perhaps the festive atmosphere around them made my corner feel particularly lonely, filled with an indescribable mix of emotions. I unconsciously drank a few more glasses of fruit wine. In a tipsy haze, I momentarily couldn't tell if this time travel was real or not. I got up and went out to the balcony, letting the wind blow on me for a long time. When I felt clearer and returned, the crowd had dispersed. My fingers rested on the half-open door of the private room. I saw Scarlett kneeling in front of Alexander, who was passed out drunk on the sofa. She held his hand gently and said softly, "I was so stupid before. I didn't know how to cherish you. But now, I won't let you go ever again." I felt a sharp pain in my chest, as if my heart was being torn apart. Just as I was about to turn and leave, Scarlett suddenly looked up and saw me standing there. Her eyes widened in shock, and she quickly stood up, her face turning pale. "Noah," she whispered, her voice trembling. I forced a smile, but it felt more like a grimace. "Don't worry, I'm just passing by. Enjoy your time together," I said, my voice cold and distant. Without waiting for her reply, I turned and walked away, my footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. I knew that from this moment on, my relationship with Scarlett was truly over, and I had to find a way to come to terms with this new reality in this strange, altered past. I had to admit, Scarlett, with her exceptional talent for learning, could master anything she set her mind to. So after that birthday party, I started hearing frequently about all the things Scarlett did for Alexander, like peeling shrimp and deboning fish for him at meals, or making handmade gifts to create little romantic moments. Oh, and she occasionally came to sit in on classes with Alexander. As for interactions between Scarlett and me since traveling back, there had only been that one time at Alexander's birthday party until today. My roommate and Alexander were in the same guitar club, which was organizing a team building hike up Mount Tamalpais. My roommate begged me to come along and take photos for him. "Bro, please. I love your composition, lighting, and color style. I'll treat you to a huge meal when we get back." After his persistent pleading, I agreed. Carrying my camera, I went with him to the meeting point, and there I saw Scarlett accompanying Alexander. She was wearing a black and white track suit, standing in the crowd, head tilted slightly up, listening intently as Alexander spoke. Perhaps my gaze lingered on her too long, because just before she turned her head towards me, I impassively shifted my eyes away. My roommate exaggeratedly introduced my photography skills to his companions. "Noah, self-taught photography master. His lighting is incredible, top-tier composition." I was amused and politely addressed the smiling students. "Just an amateur. If anyone needs photos, I'm happy to help." So for the rest of the trip, people kept offering me snacks in exchange for taking their pictures, until Alexander pulled Scarlett over and asked me, "Noah, could you take one for us too?" Holding my camera, I smiled and nodded, found a suitable spot, and aimed the lens at them. But before I could press the shutter, I heard my roommate standing nearby ask loudly, "Scarlett, why aren't you smiling? Look at Noah here, smile." Silently, I waited for the moment Scarlett forced a stiff smile and quickly snapped a few shots. Later on the bus ride back, we were looking through the photos together. After accepting everyone's polite and cheerful compliments, we finally got to the few pictures my roommate had taken of me. They were actually quite good, except for one where the focus had accidentally landed on the face of a passerby walking behind me. It was a girl in a light blue windbreaker, her eyes crinkled in a smile as if greeting someone. Amidst the cheerful chatter, someone suddenly pointed at the photo and blurted out, "What's that saying online? You don't know each other, but you're captured in the same frame. Maybe in another dimension you actually do know each other." The smile on my face finally faded completely after hearing that. He was right. In the original timeline, I did know this girl. Her name was Chloe, my first love. I actually hadn't seen her for a very, very long time, not since she died on our second anniversary. It felt like my life had been permanently stuck on the day she died, paused, suspended in mid-air. Now time had reversed, and we hadn't met yet. My wandering thoughts were jolted back by a sudden break. The camera slipped from my grasp due to inertia, but Scarlett sitting diagonally in front of me caught it with quick reflexes. After the intense jolt, I took a moment to calm down. Just as I was about to ask for it back, I noticed she was frowning, staring intently at that photo. The next second, my roommate leaned over to look and his surprised voice rang out unexpectedly. "Scarlett, she looks a lot like you." I didn't know what Scarlett thought in that instant. Her fingers suddenly tightened, but she was indeed a substitute. Regarding Scarlett and me getting together, it was actually her idea. But I knew better than anyone, Scarlett wasn't Chloe. No matter how similar, she wasn't her. So when we first got together, I felt a degree of guilt and apology because my only motive was to see her face. It wasn't until I accidentally learned that Alexander was her first love and heard her drunkenly say once, "I learned how to love someone. I'll go find you," that I belatedly understood what she meant when she told me, "I don't know how to love. Can you teach me how to love you?" She didn't love me. We were both using each other. So I began to use her as a substitute with a clear conscience. I started teaching her the ways Chloe had loved me. I finally understood why in so many fantasy dramas, after the protagonist's lover dies, a mere illusion can trap them. Knowing full well it's not the real person, yet willingly sinking deeper. I was also acutely aware that this was undoubtedly like drinking poison to quench thirst, but fate. Just when I was about to give up, I led me to see the scattered notes in her study about wormholes, black holes, the speed of light, about the clock paradox, time reversal, time travelers, and a sentence seemingly jotted down casually. Travelers can only travel into their own past bodies. In that instant, my heart suddenly raced. An incredible hypothesis inexplicably formed in my mind. Actually, after getting together with Scarlett, the deepest impression she left on me wasn't her inability to love, but her intelligence, an extreme kind of brilliance. The walls covered in certificates and trophies, her title as a physics prodigy, all testified to her smooth and glorious path. But it also fostered a certain uncontrollable arrogance in her. She didn't understand how to humble herself to love someone in a relationship until she broke up with Alexander. That was probably the only problem she couldn't solve, so she obsessively sought any means to find the answer and then go back to conquer it. Honestly, I didn't know if Scarlett's obsession was Alexander, the unattainable, or simply the only failure in her life. I didn't know if she really intended to reverse time and travel back as I suspected, let alone if she could succeed. But what if? So I pretended to know nothing and continued to be with her year after year, surpassing the time she had been with Alexander and also surpassing the time I had been with Chloe. Until the day before our 5th anniversary, I called her. "Scarlett, let's talk when you get back." I wanted to break up. Surprisingly, she was silent on the other end for a long time, then said softly, "Noah, I might not be able to spend the 5th anniversary with you." "I'm sorry." I frowned, about to say it didn't matter, but she hung up. Standing there holding my phone for a few seconds, I suddenly realized what she meant. Almost without hesitation, I rushed to her lab, which was already empty. And just like that, we went from lovers to strangers. She had turned in her perfect answer sheet, becoming the model girlfriend everyone praised. Now, looking at Scarlett staring at the photo of Chloe, I couldn't help but wonder what was going through her mind. Did she recognize the resemblance? Did she know about Chloe? Before I could think further, Scarlett handed the camera back to me. "Here," she said, her voice flat. I took it, our fingers brushing slightly. A strange electric shock seemed to pass between us. I looked up at her. but she had already turned away, chatting with Alexander as if nothing had happened. As the bus continued on its way, I couldn't stop thinking about the photo, about Chloe, and about Scarlett's reaction. I decided to do some digging. When I got back home, I started looking through old files, photos, and any information I could find related to Scarlett's research. I knew it was a long shot, but I had to know if there was a way to change this twisted timeline, if there was a chance to see Chloe again, or at least understand what was really going on. And as I delved deeper, I stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold, a journal entry from Scarlett, dated just a few days before our time travel. It read, "I know Noah followed me. I saw the look in his eyes, but he doesn't understand. This isn't just about Alexander. It's about fixing everything that went wrong for all of us." And I had the chance to save Chloe, to change her inevitable fate. Just as I didn't care about Scarlett's past with Alexander, she didn't care who I had been with. So I thought Scarlett wouldn't know that Chloe was my first love. The camera was finally handed back to me. Scarlett said nothing, just turned her head and silently gazed out the window. I had no time for other thoughts. My eyes fixed on the photo, my mind filled with Chloe. Suddenly I understood something. No matter how much I tried to maintain the original timeline, waiting for our first meeting at the university mixer, the current path had already diverged due to one small change after another. Like this photo she accidentally appeared in, like the next day in our shared elective class when she sat down next to me. I've heard people say that music and scent are vessels for memory. It's true because the moment Chloe sat down, that familiar faint orange blossom fragrance struck my heart almost faster than any conscious reaction. It pulled forth long, thin threads of sharp, aching pain. I sat rigidly at the desk, letting the tide of past memories surge. Interwoven romantic scenes, vivid fragments of our time together, right up until the second before the car crash. The steering wheel turning towards my side, then dying in front of me just when I loved her the most. The professor's question broke through my thoughts. She called my name in the silent classroom. I slowly stood up, half a beat too late, unable to utter a single word because I hadn't been listening at all. I remembered this professor. She was known in the department for calling on other students to help those who couldn't answer. So after I stood there silently for half a minute, she scanned the sea of lowered heads and asked deliberately, "Is there any student willing to help answer?" At that moment, I still hadn't fully emerged from the sorrowful memories. I actually thought it might be okay if no one stood up. I could just keep standing there, and when I looked down, I could keep seeing Chloe beside me out of the corner of my eye without her noticing. Her long fingers rested on a black pen, flipping idly through her book. Then suddenly she stood up and said clearly, "I will." I was a bit stunned, but what surprised me even more was when the professor adjusted her glasses, looked up and asked, "Is the young man in the back also volunteering to answer?" Chloe and I turned around almost simultaneously. 2 rows behind us, Scarlett, who had come to class with Alexander, had also stood up instantly. Countless eyes fell on her. She didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead calmly and said, "No, I'm going to the restroom." So it was Chloe who saved me. After sitting down, I was just about to turn and thank her when she suddenly leaned closer and whispered very softly, "Hey, your eyes are so red. You're not going to cry, are you? It's just one question. Don't cry." Faced with her sudden closeness, I blinked for a second before slowly processing it. But I didn't tell her that the stinging redness in my eyes wasn't because I couldn't answer the question. Later, using gratitude as an excuse, I offered to buy her lunch after class. I took her to a nearby noodle shop, Mama Chen's Beef Noodles, and expertly blurted out to the owner, 2 bowls of beef noodles, no scallions in either. Turning around, I saw Chloe looking at me with an amused expression. "How did you know I don't like scallions either?" she asked. I froze for a moment, unsure how to explain. Then she said, "Although I don't know who you were thinking of when you ordered, making you state the preference out of habit, I should still introduce myself." Saying this, she extended her right hand towards me, looked me seriously in the eye, and said, "Hi Noah, I'm Chloe, a first-year grad student in medicine at Stanford." I knew she was from Stanford next door, and I also knew she was actually covering the class for a friend. And this noodle shop, located between the 2 universities, UC, Berkeley and Stanford, was the place we frequented most often in the original timeline when we were together. Although it had been a long time, I still vividly remembered the last time I came here. 2 weeks after Chloe died. There's a term in psychology called the emotional isolation defense mechanism, which activates to prevent the brain from collapsing when facing extreme grief and pain. So initially, facing Chloe's death, facing the fact that I would never see her or hear her voice again, I was numb, calm, feeling nothing at all. Staring at the grayscale photo on her tombstone at Cypress Lawn Memorial Park, I didn't shed a single tear. I just lay awake every night, unable to sleep, lucidly replaying every scene from our past until one ordinary evening. I came to this noodle shop and habitually ordered 2 bowls of beef noodles, no scallions. Then when the noodles were served, looking at the empty seat across from me, tears suddenly fell without warning. The emotions that had been sealed off felt like they were suddenly ripped open, followed by a pain spreading from my heart throughout my body and tears that wouldn't stop. In the end, after forcing myself to finish the entire bowl, I threw it all up in extreme grief. After that, I never came back to this noodle shop. Fortunately, now back at the beginning, the accident hadn't happened, Chloe wasn't dead, and everything could still be changed. Looking at the hand extended before me, I gently took it and explained, I wasn't thinking of anyone. It's just my preference to. I misspoke saying 2 bowls. She tilted her head and laughed. Well, what a coincidence. From now on, it'll always be 2 bowls then. In the end, it was Chloe who paid. To my surprise, she smiled and held out her phone. Paid already. How about this? Add me on WeChat, and you can transfer it back to me. I added her and sent the money, but she returned it. She said, this one's on me. Could you do me a favor? They had a free clinic event, and she asked me to help take photos. A week later, I went with her, camera in hand, to a nearby community center in Palo Alto, documenting them providing consultations. In the photos, Chloe patiently answered residents' questions, checked blood pressure and blood sugar for the elderly, and chatted with children. The midday sun fell on her white coat, seemingly coating her in a faint, gentle light, both dazzling and warm. If Scarlet was an unattainable flower on a high peak, then Chloe was a grand, warm autumn sun. They were never the same. As the free clinic was winding down, everyone was chatting with the elderly and children. I saw Chloe surrounded by a group of kids. Just as I was capturing this heartwarming scene, my phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. Noah, we need to talk. I know what you're trying to do, and it's going to ruin everything. I didn't need to guess to know that it was from Scarlet. I looked up, scanning the surroundings, but there was no sign of her. I quickly typed a reply. What do you mean? And how do you know? Almost immediately, I received a response. Meet me at the old observatory on campus tonight at 9. Come alone, or you'll regret it. I stared at the phone screen, my heart pounding. I knew that meeting Scarlet could be a trap, but I also needed to know what she was planning and how it related to my attempt to save Chloe. I couldn't let anything stand in the way of changing Chloe's fate, but I also couldn't ignore the warning signs. As I put away my phone and turned back to look at Chloe, laughing and playing with the kids, I made a decision. I would go to the meeting, no matter what the consequences, to protect the second chance I had been given with the love of my life. Walking over, I found she was making bamboo joint puppets for them. Amidst the cheerful chirping of Chloe, Chloe, she lowered her head, holding thin green bamboo pieces. Her slender, fair fingers deftly threaded and nodding. Then she handed them out one by one. This one's for little Luke. This one's for little Sophia. I casually snapped a few photos. As I looked down at them, I suddenly heard Chloe's voice. Looking up, I saw her holding out a beautiful bamboo puppet to me, saying, Here, everyone who sees gets one. This one's for little Noah. Later, after several more interactions, Chloe and I became friends who could grab meals together. She helped me get votes when I entered the Most Beautiful Sunset photography contest. When we went to a pottery cafe together, she'd earnestly sculpt various human organs, and then, just as the couple opposite us finally finished a standard pair of hearts, she'd hold up her creation and declare, Look, a perfect heart. I'd put down the scattered limbs I was working on, give the speechless couple an awkward smile, and pull Chloe to a different table. She also introduced me to her lab mates, pointing out her senior colleagues. Now out of their white coats, she introduced them one by one. Looking at those familiar faces, I greeted them politely. I remembered the petite, elegant senior female student transformed into a cool, handsome biker chick outside the lab. I also remembered the composed senior male student was actually a top player in the esports world. As for my appearance and Chloe's introduction, my friend Noah, they all looked at me with knowing, friendly smiles and a teasing, oh expression. Honestly, they didn't say anything explicit, but it felt like they said everything. My ears grew warm under their gaze. Chloe stepped in front of me, pleading, "Guys, please spare me. Tone down the looks a bit." They rested their chins on their hands and continued smiling at me. "Easy, easy. Just call a senior brother and sister, and we'll all be family soon." Eventually, I became friends with them too. We played escape rooms together, went to the Inter-University Music Festival at Golden Gate Park. I got so immersed in this stable, cheerful life that I almost forgot I had traveled back in time until I ran into Scarlett again. Probably because all my attention and thoughts were focused on Chloe during that period, I automatically tuned out my roommate's gossip in the dorm. So seeing Scarlett made me suddenly realize I hadn't heard her name in a long time. It was at an outdoor barbecue spot, Smokey Joe's, on a summer evening. I was sitting with Chloe and her lab mates playing Truth or Dare when I suddenly felt an intense gaze on me. Subconsciously, I turned to look and met Scarlett's eyes. She was at another table with Alexander and another couple. It seemed almost deliberate. Alexander was holding Scarlett's hand, talking animatedly without checking if she was listening, laughing happily about something, while the girl across from him had a tense face, lips pressed tightly together, silent. The atmosphere seemed harmonious, yet strangely subtle. Scarlett's stare made me feel uneasy, like pins and needles on my back. Fortunately, the girl opposite Alexander suddenly stood up, clearly unhappy, and said she wasn't eating anymore. They were leaving, holding the grilled chicken leg Chloe had handed me. I heard Alexander leaning slightly against Scarlett, slurring drunkenly as they walked away. "Scarlett, I like you the most." As they passed our table, my gaze briefly swept over them. I noticed that Alexander, both in action and words, really did seem to like her a lot. But she didn't look happy. This question was answered soon enough. Alexander broke up with her, my roommate from the guitar club said regretfully during our nightly gossip session. The pen in my hand stopped abruptly. I suddenly remembered a night in the original timeline when my roommate had mentioned Alexander breaking up with his girlfriend in the same way. Back then, he said Alexander accused Scarlett of not knowing how to love, couldn't stand being with her anymore, insisted on breaking up, and soon after went public with Scarlett's friend. But now, Scarlett had clearly become the perfect girlfriend in everyone's eyes. I didn't understand why they still broke up. My roommate's explanation was that Alexander got bored. Scarlett loved him like a pre-programmed robot, which was dull. Then my roommate opened his social media feed. Look, he's already announced his new relationship, and it's Scarlett's friend again. I stared at the post, speechless. It was the girl with the unhappy expression from the barbecue that night. Then I heard my roommate lower his voice conspiratorially. Actually, the real reason is Alexander never really liked Scarlett. He only got together with her to spite his childhood crush, trying to make her jealous. Yeah, that crush is Scarlett's friend, his current girlfriend. So whether Scarlett knew how to love or not, Alexander didn't care at all because they were destined to break up eventually. And Scarlett, she thought she had found the right answer, only to discover the question itself was wrong. Amidst sighs of sympathy, another roommate asked, "So Scarlett just agreed? Didn't try to win him back?" She seemed to like Alexander so much. Nope. Heard she accepted it very calmly. Didn't say anything to try and keep him. I found this somewhat absurd, instinctively unwilling to accept this outcome because it made me feel that what was meant to happen would happen regardless. This feeling peaked a week later when I saw Scarlett again. I found a lost child in a large shopping mall downtown, the Stanford Shopping Center. After taking her to the information desk, I waited with her until her mother arrived. She was a very beautiful, elegant woman wearing an expensive-looking navy blue cheongsam. After taking the child's hand, she insisted on thanking me by treating me to tea at the tea house downstairs. Despite my repeated refusals, she insisted, saying her conscience wouldn't be clear otherwise. Following her past a carved wooden screen, I saw Scarlett sitting at a square table, wearing a beige sweater and holding a Celadon cup. Distant memories instantly resurfaced. Although the timing was off, my first meeting with Scarlett in the original timeline happened exactly because I found this child. Except back then, it was Scarlett who came to pick up the child, her cousin's daughter who occasionally visited from abroad. Scarlett's parents were both researchers, rarely around, so she grew up quite independent and emotionally distant from her family. During our 5 years together, I hardly ever met her relatives. Thus, this cousin and niece whom I'd only met once had faded from my memory over time. But I never expected that coming back, the same situation would occur again, just slightly altered. The girl's mother explained that this was the cousin she was meeting, then turned to Scarlett and said, "This young man helped find her. His name is Noah." As she finished, Scarlett slowly put down her cup and looked up at me. Her eyes were calm, but there was a hint of something I couldn't quite decipher. "Fancy meeting you here, Noah," she said, her voice even. Before I could respond, the girl's mother chimed in. "You two know each other? That's great. Noah, why don't you join us? I'm sure Scarlett wouldn't mind." Scarlett forced a smile and nodded, but I could tell she wasn't truly welcoming. I was about to decline when I thought of the message she sent me before, the one asking me to meet at the observatory. I decided to stay, hoping to get some answers. As I sat down, I couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was not just a coincidence, and that Scarlett might hold the key to whether I could truly change Chloe's fate, or if everything was still doomed to follow the same tragic path as before. Put down her teacup, looked over and said, I know him." I don't know how to describe my state of mind then. When the mother learned Scarlett and I were from the same university, she exclaimed delightedly, "Wow, what a coincidence." Then she looked curiously between Scarlett and me, one in physics, one in finance. "How did you two meet?" The private room fell silent. I shifted my gaze from the gently swaying irises across the room and said calmly, "We don't really know each other. She was my classmate's girlfriend. We met once." The next second, Scarlett added, "We broke up." "Oh, so now she was the ex-girlfriend." Sensing my lack of enthusiasm, the girl's mother didn't press further about me and started chatting with Scarlett instead. I picked up a pastry and focused on playing with the little girl beside me, ignoring their conversation. Until just before we left, I heard the mother ask Scarlett meaningfully, "Coming back this time, I noticed you seem to have changed a lot. Your personality is much more subdued. Why is it? Because of that boy you broke up with?" Scarlett shook her head gently. "No, he didn't like me, and I didn't like him either." "Oh, but you still seem quite sad." Scarlett was silent for a few seconds, her voice slightly hoarse, because I belatedly realized I think I missed out on someone I truly liked. I didn't know what she meant by that, nor did I want to know. But after that, our encounters started becoming more frequent, getting caught under the same eaves during a downpour, ending up at the same table in the dining hall. Even the campus ginger cat I often fed suddenly darted over to her feet one day. Too many coincidences stopped being coincidences. So I started going out less, stopped eating in the dining hall, and stopped feeding that ginger cat. After a while, Scarlett intercepted me in the library corridor I always used. She asked, seemingly puzzled, "Noah, are you avoiding me?" Yes, I was avoiding her. After all, having come back, she and I had no relationship anymore, and I didn't want one. So I replied calmly, "And in what capacity are you standing here questioning me? As my classmate's ex-girlfriend?" She looked up at me for a long time, her face paling slightly, before finally stepping aside to let me pass. I thought someone as proud as her probably wouldn't seek me out again. But her breakup, our encounters, and various other events happening sooner or later, but mirroring the original timeline, still instilled a strong sense of unease deep inside me. I started frequently dreaming about the car crash from the original timeline. In the dream, I was back on my second anniversary with Chloe. My arm was injured from playing basketball, so I was in the passenger seat while she drove. I was telling her about a travel show I'd recently watched and places I wanted to visit in the future. She listened quietly, occasionally glancing at me with gentle eyes and replying, "Okay, whatever you want." Just as we were talking about how to celebrate future anniversaries, a truck suddenly ran a red light and sped across the intersection on University Avenue. Actually, there wasn't much traffic on that road then, not many people either. If the brakes had worked, the accident could have been avoided. But the brakes failed. Chloe unhesitatingly wrenched the steering wheel towards my side, giving me the only possible chance of survival. After the violent impact, I lost consciousness for a few seconds. When I opened my eyes again, I was in the car. The smell of blood was sharp and pungent. My whole body ached too much to utter a sound. Through blurred vision, I saw a long shard of debris piercing Chloe's chest. She was weak, repeatedly pleading with the onlookers gathering around. Save him first. Please save him first. Later, they pulled me out through the shattered window. The last thing I saw before losing consciousness was the car exploding. The investigation results were released quickly. Besides the truck running the red light due to driver fatigue, Chloe's car's brake system had been deliberately tampered with. The perpetrator was a man burdened with millions in debt from online loans, unable to repay. He developed a desire for revenge against society and sabotaged the brake systems of nearly all the cars parked in that area near campus. That's why the accident rate was extremely high during that period, with numerous casualties. Lying in my hospital bed at Stanford Hospital, I numbly scrolled through the news on my phone, quietly listening to the comforting words from Chloe's lab mates when they visited. Everyone told me to look forward, to move on. But I didn't understand. If I moved on, what about Chloe left behind? I was startled awake by a shrill alarm clock. Opening my eyes, I stared blankly at the ceiling, noticing the dampness at the corners of my eyes. I realized I had been crying again. Every detail of that car crash was practically etched into my bones, including the criminal who sabotaged the brakes. But there was nothing I could do right now. Before he tampered with the brakes, he was just an ordinary person in debt. I didn't dare approach him beforehand and risk causing other unforeseen changes. I could only keep the alterations to a minimum and wait for the day he committed the crime. And while waiting, Chloe and I got together. Before that happened, I actually sensed signs she was about to confess her feelings. It started when a senior girl from the photography club asked me to pretend to be her boyfriend to ward off a guy who kept pestering her. In the elegant, quiet restaurant, the Garden Court, she put her arm around me and told the guy opposite us, "I really do have a boyfriend. Look, his name is Noah." My acting wasn't great. I was afraid I'd blow it if I spoke, so I just forced a smile and nodded along. The next second, I inadvertently glanced past the frosted glass partition and saw Chloe sitting at another table with her friend. She had probably seen the whole thing. When our eyes met, she quickly looked down, ignored her friend's question, and just quietly ate her food. That night, I saw her social media post a picture of a cracked heart model with the caption, "Heartbroken." The next day, I brought her favorite plum cakes, a special order from Shine Key Bakery, to find her in the sunset-drenched hallway. She stood before me, looking dejected, her usual bright smile gone. I watched her silently take a bite of the cake and asked, "Is it sweet?" "No, it's bitter." I nodded in understanding, murmured a soft, "Oh," then changed the subject, mentioning a new Peking duck restaurant nearby, Great China, and asking if she wanted to try it. She stared silently at the floor for a moment, her voice low. "If we go eat together, won't your girlfriend mind?" I feigned surprise, "Ah, you." Just as I was about to answer Chloe, my phone rang suddenly. It was an unknown number. A sense of unease welled up in my heart, but I still answered it. "Noah, we need to talk." "It's about Chloe," a familiar voice said. It was Scarlett. Her tone was serious, and there was an urgency that I couldn't ignore. "What do you know? And how do you know?" I asked, my grip on the phone tightening. "Meet me at the old abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city in an hour. Come alone, and don't tell anyone, especially Chloe." "This is for her safety," Scarlett said, and then the line went dead. I stood there torn. On one hand, I didn't trust Scarlett after everything that had happened. On the other hand, the mention of Chloe's safety made my heart race. I knew I couldn't ignore this, no matter how much I wanted to stay away from Scarlett. After a moment of hesitation, I sent a message to Chloe, telling her I had something urgent to deal with and would meet her later. Then, I took a deep breath and headed towards the abandoned warehouse, not knowing what awaited me there. Mean the senior girl from yesterday? I was just helping her fend off unwanted attention. How was it? Was my acting good enough to fool even you? I paused, seeing her eyes gradually brighten, then continued. But even if I did have a girlfriend, just having a meal with a friend, she probably wouldn't mind. Then would you mind having a girlfriend? She suddenly interrupted, looking at me nervously. Our eyes met. I smiled faintly and said lightly, "Well, that depends on whether the plum cake is sweet." I did wait in line for 2 hours to buy it. She froze for a second, then stuffed the remaining half of the cake into her mouth and mumbled indistinctly, "Sweet." It's so sweet it could kill me. That night, she posted again, a photo of my side profile with the caption, "The rest of my life." And that's how Chloe and I got together. None of the romantic confession scenes from novels or dramas, just two hearts holding each other. After that, like any other campus couple, we spent a period of ordinary but happy time together until the day before the date I had marked on my calendar. Outside an old apartment complex near campus, 3 a.m., the time of the crime, the sabotage breaks. But that day was no longer our second anniversary, and, due to various changes, her car wasn't parked there. The ones I needed to save were the others. Initially, I was apprehensive, worried about unexpected complications, but reality turned out surprisingly smooth. Not wanting to get entangled in the crime and face interrogations, I reported to the police that I had lost a watch worth $3,000 in that area, last seen around 3:30 a.m. The police quickly reviewed the security footage and saw a suspicious man repeatedly appearing near multiple cars holding tools. Logically, suspicion and investigation followed, none of which involved me anymore. As for the watch, the next day I told the police I found it in a trash can. I also heard the news that the brakes of several cars had been tampered with that night, and the criminal was caught. The thing I had worried about for so long seemed to be resolved, but deep down I still felt uneasy. This unease lingered until 2 weeks later, the day Chloe and I went to see a movie at the Century Cinema 16. As we were walking slowly through the crowd, a man with a scar on his right cheek brushed past me. I caught a glimpse of a knife hidden in his sleeve. He was heading towards a pregnant woman. In a split second, my actions outpaced my thoughts. By the time I realized what was happening, I had already shielded the pregnant woman, taking the knife for her. Lying on the ground, I finally knew what I had forgotten. That scarred man was a fugitive in the original timeline. He died during his escape in one of the car crashes caused by the brake failures. But in this timeline, the crashes were prevented, he survived. Chaos erupted around me. Chloe knelt beside me, saying something, her eyes red, rimmed, but I couldn't hear anything anymore. It felt like I walked through a thick fog for a long, long time, eventually arriving at the park next to my childhood home in Fremont. Back when I was 10, because of my illness, I had to take hormone medication long-term, which made me very overweight. Other kids would often circle around me chanting taunts, "Fat pig, ugly freak, fat pig, ugly freak." I'd cover my ears and try to explain, "I'm not a fat pig. I'm sick. I'll get better. I'm not a fat pig." No one listened. They just grinned watching me crouch on the ground, shouting even louder. Until a girl appeared like an angel descending from heaven. She coolly warned them that if anyone said another word, she'd hang them from a tree and let birds poop on them. After they ran off screaming, the girl knelt in front of me. I didn't dare look up and comforted me softly, "Don't be afraid." I chased them all away. I slowly raised my head to look at her gentle face and whispered, "Miss, I'm not a fat pig. I'm sick." She smiled warmly at me. "Emicum, I know you're just sick. You'll get better." After that day, every time I went to the park, I saw her jogging. No one else wanted to play with me, only her. But she was too beautiful, so beautiful it made me feel self-conscious and sad. I couldn't help asking, "Miss, what if I never get better?" She ruffled my hair, hummed thoughtfully, and said, "Then I'll become a doctor. I'll cure you." From our first meeting to our parting, it was only 11 days. That was the last thing she said to me, right after I heard her mother calling from a distance, "Chloe, Chloe Chun, time for dinner." The next day, my dad's affair was discovered. My mom took me and moved away immediately. I never saw Chloe again. When we met again, she was already a medical student, standing in a crowd as beautiful and radiant as ever, and my illness was cured. Later, we unexpectedly reconnected at the university mixer, got to know each other, understood each other, got together. The person I had secretly loved for nearly 10 years loved me back, and then, before I even had the chance to ask if she remembered me, she died. Fortunately, this time I saved her. If this was the price, then I was willing to pay it. I returned to the thick, swirling fog. I vaguely sensed someone talking beside me, but couldn't react. Faintly, I seemed to hear Chloe's voice. She sounded helpless, asking someone nearby, her voice broken and hoarse. "I've studied medicine for so long. Why can't I save him? Professor Davis, what do I do?" When I regained consciousness again, the hospital room was quiet. Someone was sitting by the bed, Using all my strength, I could only lift my eyelids slightly. I could only vaguely make out her face. It looked like Chloe and also like Scarlett. I tried hard to distinguish for a long time, unsuccessfully, until she spoke. If I hadn't traveled back, would the butterfly effect not have happened, and you wouldn't have gotten hurt? Or maybe you came back too, which is why you saved that pregnant woman. She paused, then laughed self-deprecatingly. I never knew. In the other timeline, you liked me because of her? Or was it because my time travel indirectly led you to fall in love with her in this timeline? I guess I'll never know the answer to that question. But Noah, I regret it. All this time, I thought all problems could be solved through study, reasoning, calculation. But it turns out, loving someone isn't like that. It's unsolvable, just like it seems I can never make you who fell in love with her fall in love with me again. I wasn't particularly keen on recalling the 5-year relationship with Scarlett, but her words made me realize that time travel had created a web of complicated and intertwined fates. Just as I was trying to gather my thoughts, the door of the hospital room suddenly burst open. Chloe rushed in, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She pushed the person sitting by the bed away and grabbed my hand tightly. "Noah, you're awake." "I was so scared," she said, her voice trembling. The person who was pushed away stood up, and it was clearly Scarlett. Her expression was a mix of sadness and resignation. "Chloe, Scarlett tried to say something, but Chloe interrupted her angrily. "What are you doing here? Haven't you caused enough trouble? Because of your time travel, Noah got hurt. If it weren't for you." Chloe's words were like sharp knives, stabbing at the already tense atmosphere in the room. Scarlett bit her lip, tears welling up in her eyes, but she didn't defend herself. Instead, she turned to me and said softly, "Noah, I hope you get better soon." Then she walked out of the room slowly. Chloe sat down beside me, still holding my hand tightly. "Noah, promise me you won't do anything so reckless again. I can't bear to lose you," she said, looking at me with a pleading gaze. I squeezed her hand weakly and smiled at her. "I promise. But there are still so many things I don't understand, about time travel, about Scarlett." Before I could finish, Chloe put her finger on my lips. "Don't worry about those things now. The most important thing is that you're safe. We'll figure everything out together later," she said. But I knew deep down that the story wasn't over yet. With Scarlett's involvement and the mysteries of time travel still unsolved, there were bound to be more challenges and revelations waiting for us. And I wasn't sure if our love could withstand the upcoming storms. Years I spent with Scarlett, but a small incident inexplicably surfaced in my mind. It was probably the winter of our 3rd year together. I was on the phone with her on my way home from my part-time job when I accidentally bumped into someone. I cried out as my phone flew from my hand and fell precisely through the narrow slit of a storm drain. Extremely frustrated, I used the little cash I had on me to ride around in a taxi all night. It wasn't until the next day that I found out Scarlett had spent the entire night looking for me. I didn't know why she did that, but a relationship started with impure motives between two people was bound to fail. Saying anything more now was pointless. I woke up completely on an ordinary evening. Opening my eyes, I saw Chloe, head bowed, patiently wiping my fingers one by one. I turned my head towards her and called out softly, "Chloe." The wiping motion stopped abruptly. She didn't look up, her knuckles gripping the towel so tightly they turned white. After a moment of silence, she stood up and strode out of the room. Staring at the white ceiling, I counted silently in my head. When I reached 57, she came back in. The corners of her eyes were red. After a full checkup confirmed I was okay, on the day I was discharged, Chloe took me to her apartment. Thus began the routine of her meticulously taking care of me, her days revolving around me. I felt apologetic and said, "I'm sorry. We just got together, and I'm already causing you so much trouble." She seemed to laugh out of exasperation, ruffled my hair, placed a bowl of soup in front of me, and feigned anger. "Then hurry up and drink it. Get better quickly." I frowned and shook my head. My ABS already disappeared from lying around. "Drinking this will make it worse." She lost her temper completely, then scooped up a spoonful of soup, brought it to my lips, and coaxed softly, "Come on, little Noah, open up. Listen to Dr. Chloe. Healthy is the most handsome." And so, amidst Chloe's mix of exasperation and coaxing, I recovered. I saw Scarlett again 6 months later at Safeway. I was holding a few oranges, looking for Chloe when one accidentally rolled away, kept rolling and rolling until someone bent down, stopped it, and picked it up. It was Scarlett. She walked towards me step by step and placed the orange back in my arms. In the silent eye contact that followed, I sincerely said to her, "Scarlett, thank you." She looked at me, complex emotions swirling in her eyes. But in the end, she said nothing and turned to leave. As I watched her retreating back, I suddenly heard Chloe's voice from behind me. "Noah." I quickly answered, "Coming," and brushed past Scarlett just as she seemed about to speak. Just like how in this vast, boundless universe, we might have brief encounters, but ultimately we just drift further and further apart. That evening, back home, while tidying up the study, I noticed a photo frame in the glass cabinet. Inside was a hand-drawn cartoon figure, a chubby little boy with a speech bubble above his head containing the word "Miss." I took the drawing to Chloe and asked her when she had recognized me. She smiled, a slight arch in her eyebrow, and casually flipped the frame over. I froze. It was a photo of her, but the focus was on me walking past in the background. The date stamp on it was the exact day of our hike up Mount Tamalpais. So that's why she sat down next to me the following day, and from then on, our story had a new beginning. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Chloe and I grew closer with each passing day. We would often go on long walks along the beach, holding hands and sharing our dreams and fears. One evening, as the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the ocean, Chloe turned to me and said, "Noah, I want to show you something." She led me to a small, secluded area of the beach where there was a large, smooth rock. On it, she had carved our names and the date we got together. I wanted to create something permanent, something that would remind us of our love every time we came here, she said, her eyes shining with love. Just as I was about to respond, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, but then decided to answer it. A familiar voice came through the speaker. "Noah, we need to talk. It's about time travel, and it's urgent." It was Scarlett. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I had thought I had left all the time travel-related troubles behind, but it seemed like they were about to catch up with me again. I looked at Chloe, who was watching me with a worried expression. "Who was that?" she asked. I took a deep breath and said, "It was Scarlett. She said she needs to talk to me about time travel." Chloe's face paled slightly, but she nodded. "Then you should go? But please be careful," she said. I met Scarlett at an old coffee shop on the outskirts of the city. When I walked in, she was sitting at a corner table, looking tired and worn out. She motioned for me to sit down. "Noah, I've been doing a lot of research since we last met," she began. "I've discovered that time travel is much more dangerous than we thought. Every time we make a change, it creates a ripple effect that can have unforeseen consequences. And I'm afraid that the changes we've made have put us all in danger." I listened intently, my heart pounding. "What kind of danger?" I asked. Scarlett looked at me seriously. "I'm not sure yet, but I think there's a possibility that the timeline could start to collapse. And if that happens, everything we know and love could be erased.